I stood in front of 200 people at my 25th wedding anniversary party. My hands weren't shaking. I'd practiced this moment for 3 years. The champagne glasses caught the chandelier light, and every eye in that Connecticut ballroom was on me. My son David, my golden boy, stood near the front, smiling that Harvard smile. His sisters, Sarah and Emily, looked confused. They had no idea what was coming. Neither did he. "Thank you all for celebrating with us tonight," I said. My voice carried across the silent room. "I have an announcement about our family estate." David's smile widened. He thought he knew what I was about to say. What he didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I'd been planning this for years. "I'm leaving everything to my daughters. David gets nothing." The room exploded. "My name is Margaret Anderson, 55 years old, married to Dr. Robert Anderson for a quarter century. We looked perfect on paper. Big house in Connecticut, 3 beautiful children, old money. Robert ran the pharmaceutical company his father built from nothing. Or so everyone believed. Our son David was 30, graduated Harvard Law, married to a former beauty queen, 2 kids of his own. Then Sarah, 28, a public school teacher, and Emily, our youngest at 25, an artist. People always called us the perfect family. I used to believe it too. I'd smile at country club brunches, while other mothers complained about their children. Mine were successful. Mine were happy. Mine had everything they needed. That's what I told myself every single night. But perfection is a mask, and masks always crack eventually. David could do no wrong. Broke Emily's arm at 7. Boys will be boys. Crashed my car, drunk at 16. He's under pressure. Robert always had excuses. Harvard Law, partner at 30. Wife who looked like a magazine cover. Every family dinner became the David show. Robert would list his accomplishments, while Sarah stared at her plate, and Emily stopped coming altogether. But I saw what others didn't. The way David's eyes went cold when his sister spoke, how every move was calculated. Sarah got her teaching certification and tried to share the news at dinner. David interrupted after 30 seconds to talk about his Mercedes. Robert didn't even notice she'd been speaking. Something died in my daughter's eyes that night. Emily painted beautiful, raw work. David called it hobby art at Thanksgiving. Said she should stop embarrassing the family. She never showed us her paintings again. I watched it happen. God forgive me. I let my husband erase our daughters piece by piece. Robert's father built Anderson Pharmaceuticals in the 1950s. That's the story everyone knew. The company was worth $30 million by the time the old man died. Then there was the Connecticut estate, 12 acres, the house alone worth $4 million. Trust funds, stock portfolios, art collection. Everyone estimated our total wealth at $45 million, give or take. Robert always talked about it like it was his father's legacy. He'd give these speeches at charity dinners about American entrepreneurship, about building something from nothing. People would applaud. I'd smile and nod. But here's what nobody knew. Robert's father started that company with money from my family. My father wrote him a check for $300,000 in 1952. That was worth millions in today's money. The house? My mother's inheritance bought it. 70% of everything they called Anderson money came from my side. I had the papers to prove it. It happened at David's law school graduation party. Robert was 3 drinks in, feeling generous and proud. He stood up, clinked his glass, made everyone listen. "I want you all to know," he announced, "that when I'm gone, David will take over Anderson Pharmaceuticals. It's time I made it official." The room cheered. David hugged his father, played humble, said all the right things. Sarah's face went blank. Emily left early, said she had a headache. Nobody asked if they were okay. Robert pulled me aside, later. The girls will get money, of course. $1 million each, maybe 2. But the company needs strong leadership. David's earned this. Earned it. Like his sisters, hadn't worked, hadn't struggled, hadn't been pushed aside their entire lives. I smiled, kissed his cheek, said it sounded fair. Inside, something shifted. That was the night I started planning. I became invisible that year, the agreeable wife. Robert would talk about updating the will, and I'd nod. He'd praise David's business sense, and I'd smile. He'd dismiss the girls' problems, and I'd stay quiet. Everyone thought I supported his decisions. Even my daughters assumed I'd chosen David over them. Sarah stopped calling as much. Emily moved to Boston, barely visited. They thought I didn't care, that I loved their brother more. I let them believe it. But every Tuesday, I met with my attorney in the city. Jackson Webb, 60 years old, sharp as broken glass. We went through every document, every contract, every deed. I learned things about my own money I'd never known. Robert had been careless, arrogant. He never thought I'd question anything. This will take time, Jackson warned me. Years, maybe. I told him I had time. What I didn't tell him was that I'd wait as long as it took. Sarah called at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. I knew something was wrong before I answered. Her voice came out broken, raw. Mom, I need help. Her husband had been cheating for 8 months. She'd just found out. He wanted the house in the divorce, claimed he'd paid for everything, even though she'd worked 2 jobs to cover the down payment. She was losing everything. Her marriage, her home. Her savings account was empty because she'd trusted him with the finances. I don't know what to do, she sobbed. I have nowhere to go. Robert rolled over, annoyed at being woken. Tell her to call in the morning, he muttered. I took the phone into the hallway, sat on the stairs in the dark, listening to my daughter fall apart. Did you call David? I asked. She went quiet. Then, he said he couldn't help right now. Couldn't help. His sister was drowning, and he couldn't help. That's when I knew I'd been right about everything. Sarah needed $50,000. The lawyer's retainer alone was $15,000. She had to move out, find an apartment, start over. It wasn't a gift she was asking for. She wanted a loan, had drawn up a payment plan, would pay interest if he wanted. I heard David's voicemail recording when she called him that morning. Professional, polished, important. He called back 3 days later. I was at Sarah's apartment helping her pack when her phone rang. She put it on speaker. Look, Sarah, I can't enable financial irresponsibility. His voice was so calm, so reasonable. You made bad choices, married the wrong guy, didn't protect yourself legally. I can't bail you out every time you mess up. She'd never asked him for money before. Not once in 30 years. This would teach you nothing, he continued. Sometimes tough love is real love. Then he hung up. Sarah sat on her half-packed boxes and didn't cry. That was worse than crying. 4 months later, Emily collapsed at her studio. Stage 2, breast cancer. 25 years old. No health insurance, because she was freelancing. Couldn't afford the premiums. The treatment plan would cost $60,000. Minimum. Maybe more. She called David first. I didn't know that until later. She'd been trying to reconnect with her brother. Thought maybe he'd matured. She explained everything, the diagnosis, the prognosis, the cost. Asked if he could help. This is exactly what I've been saying, David told her. Not, I'm sorry. Not, we'll figure this out. Just judgment. You should have gotten a real job with benefits. Actions have consequences, Em. Maybe this will be the wake-up call you need. Emily hung up and called me. He told me I deserve this, she whispered. He said if I'd been responsible, I wouldn't be in this position. I drove to Boston that night. What David didn't know was that I'd already been moving money around for months, hiding assets, preparing. Emily would get her treatment. Sarah would keep her house. And David would learn what consequences really looked like. That June dinner, Sarah was hiding in my guest house after her divorce. Emily wore a wig. Cancer still secret. David arrived late, bragging about a $15 million deal for 45 minutes. Sarah mentioned her promotion. Department head. Robert said, "That's nice," and turned back to David. I watched my son across that table, golden and empty. He caught my eye and smiled, thinking I adored him. I was counting down the days. Every Tuesday at 10. Jackson's office, 43rd floor, Manhattan. We went through boxes my mother had kept from the 1950s, documents most people would have thrown away. "You signed these in 1998, Jackson said, pointing to papers I barely remembered. Anniversary night. Wine. Roses. Robert asking you to sign formalities." I remembered now. Trusting. Stupid. He made himself sole owner. But he needed your signature, and he made mistakes. Community property law protects you. With your family's original investment, Jackson smiled, we can prove 70% is legally yours. How long? 2, maybe 3 years. I'd already waited 1. Then we keep going. David made his first real mistake in August. He came to Sunday dinner, excited, buzzing, couldn't wait to tell his father about an incredible investment opportunity. Some tech startup, cryptocurrency something, revolutionary, couldn't lose. He needed $200,000. Robert wrote the check that night. I said nothing. 6 months later, the company folded. The money vanished. David came to dinner, pale, quiet. There were complications, he told Robert. Unforeseen market conditions. These things happen in business. Robert nodded, disappointed but understanding. You'll make it back, he said. But I'd been watching. I had access to the company accounts, though Robert didn't know I checked them. David hadn't invested that money. He'd spent it. Gambling debts. A condo in Miami. A woman named Tessa, who wasn't his wife. I hired a private investigator, just to be sure. The photos came back clear as day. I added them to the folder Jackson was building, page after page of David's true character, documented and undeniable. What David didn't know was that I'd been collecting evidence for 2 years. Every lie, every theft, every moment of cruelty toward his sisters. I had it all. Jennifer Anderson, David's wife, loved social media. 10,000 followers, perfectly curated life. Lots of photos with inspirational quotes. That September, she posted a picture of their house. Big smile, designer outfit, champagne glass. The caption made my blood stop. So blessed to be part of the Anderson legacy. Can't wait until David takes over the family company. Some people are just born for greatness. Year, family, empire, legacy. Blessed. The comments poured in. Congratulations. You deserve it. Your family is so lucky. One comment stood out. Jennifer had replied to someone asking about David's sisters. Oh, they're teachers and artists and stuff. Sweet girls. But not really business-minded, you know. Sweet girls. Stuff. Emily screenshotted it, sent it to our family group chat. Sarah responded with a single period. David didn't say anything. Neither did Robert. I called Jennifer that afternoon. Take it down, I said quietly. She laughed. Oh, Margaret, don't be sensitive. Everyone knows David's inheriting. I'm just excited. Take it down. She didn't. The post stayed up for 3 weeks. I saved every screenshot. Robert collapsed during his morning run. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. 6 months to live. David arrived first, still in his court suit. Cried real tears. Then leaned close and whispered, Don't worry, Dad. I'll take care of everything. The company will be safe with me. His father was dying, and David was already counting his inheritance. Sarah came from work, mascara running. Emily threw up from chemo before sitting by his bed. Robert told them he loved them He meant it, but he loved his son more. He always had. David brought his lawyer to the hospital 3 days after Robert's diagnosis. Lawrence Mitchell, 60 years old, briefcase full of documents. They cornered Robert in his room while I was downstairs getting coffee. When I came back, papers covered the bed table. "We're just organizing things," David said smoothly. "Dad wants to make sure everything's in order. Right, Dad?" Robert looked tired, gray, small in that hospital bed. He nodded. The new will left everything to David. The company, the house, the investments, everything. Sarah and Emily would each get $500,000. David would get $40 million. "This protects the business," Lawrence explained. "Keeps it intact, prevents it from being divided and weakened. It's what's best for the family legacy." Robert's hand shook as he reached for the pen. "Margaret needs to sign too," Lawrence said, turning to me. "Community property laws require both spouses." I looked at those papers, then at David's face. Eager, hungry, already counting. "I need time to read everything," I said carefully. "This is complicated." David's smile tightened. "Mom, it's straightforward. Dad explained it. I'll read it myself, with my own lawyer." The room went quiet. Robert stared at me, confused. David's jaw clenched. But I smiled, kissed my dying husband's forehead, and walked out. I didn't sign. Every day for 2 weeks, David asked about the will. "Have you signed yet?" Casual at first, then frustrated, then angry. I told him I was still reviewing it. He brought Lawrence to the house. I served them coffee and said I needed more time. "Time for what?" David finally exploded. We were alone in my kitchen, everyone else gone. "Dad is dying. Every day you delay is a day he has to worry about this." "If he's worried," I said quietly, "maybe the will isn't right. It's completely fair. The girls are getting money, $500,000 each, while you get $40 million. I'm getting the company. That's different. That comes with responsibility." I smiled. "Exactly, responsibility. Something you've never actually demonstrated." His face changed. For just a second, I saw real rage. Then the mask slipped back. "I don't know what you think you're doing," he said, "but you need to sign, or I'll make sure Dad knows you're betraying him." I set down my coffee cup. "Try it." He left. The papers remained unsigned. What David didn't understand was that I held all the power. Without my signature, that will meant nothing. And I was never, ever going to sign. Jackson called me into his office on a Wednesday. "I found it," he said. His desk was covered in documents. The smoking gun. My father, Richard Morrison, had invested $300,000 in Anderson Pharmaceuticals in 1952. The original contract stated it wasn't a loan. It was a partnership. My father owned 40% of the company. When he died in 1973, that ownership should have passed to me. But Robert's father had convinced my mother to sign papers transferring everything to the Anderson Family Trust. She'd been grieving, trusting, didn't understand what she was signing. No one had ever corrected it. "Legally," Jackson explained, "you own significant portions of what everyone thinks is pure Anderson money. The house was purchased with funds from your mother's inheritance. The investment portfolio was built partially on your family's wealth. We can prove at least 70% of the current estate is actually yours." I sat there, staring at decades-old papers that proved my entire marriage had been built on a lie. Robert had let me believe I was just the doctor's wife, that I'd married into money, that everything was his family's legacy. But it was mine. It had always been mine. My mother kept everything in her attic. I'd gone through it after she died, boxed it all up, stored it in our basement. Robert had never looked. Why would he? "Just old papers," he'd said. "Throw them out if you want." I didn't throw them out. Jackson and I spent 3 days going through every box. Bank statements from the 1950s, letters between my father and Robert's father, the original partnership agreement, signed and notarized, a prenuptial contract from when Robert and I married, stating that family assets would remain separate in case of divorce. I'd signed it at 23, in love, not caring about money. Now it was my weapon. There was also a letter from my father to my mother, written 6 months before he died. "Make sure Margaret knows what she's entitled to," it said. "The Andersons are good people, but business is business. Our investment built that company. Never forget that." My mother had forgotten, or been convinced to forget, but I had the proof now. Every document authenticated, every signature verified, every claim backed by legal precedent. David thought he was fighting for his father's money. He had no idea he was actually fighting for mine. He died on a Tuesday morning in October, peacefully, the hospice nurse said. I was holding his hand. David was on his way from the city. Sarah and Emily were in the kitchen making coffee. Robert opened his eyes one last time. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I don't know what he was apologizing for. Maybe everything. Maybe nothing. Then he was gone. David arrived 20 minutes later. He cried. We all cried. Then, after the funeral home took the body, after the girls had gone to lie down, David pulled me aside. "The will," he said. "We need to make this official now. Where do we go to file it?" His father had been dead for 3 hours. "The will you wanted me to sign?" I asked. "I never signed it, David. It's not valid." His face went white. "What?" "Your father's previous will stands. The one from 10 years ago. That one splits everything 3 ways. "Yes," I said. "It does." He called Lawrence immediately, started yelling about legal challenges, about proving Robert's intentions, about getting me declared incompetent. I let him shout. Then I called Jackson. The war had begun. The will from 2015 was simple. Robert's assets divided equally among his 3 children, 1/3 each. No special provisions for David. No company control clause. Just a father leaving his children equal shares. David had convinced him to change it in 2023. But that new will required my signature to be valid. Without it, we defaulted back to the old one. "This isn't what Dad wanted," David kept saying. We were in Lawrence's office. All of us, 3 days after the funeral. "He promised me the company. Everyone knows that. Promises aren't legally binding," Jackson replied calmly. "She manipulated him," David said, pointing at me. "She refused to sign to hurt me." "I refused to sign because the will was unjust," I corrected. "Your sisters deserved better." Sarah and Emily sat silently, still processing. They'd expected nothing. Now, they were each getting over $10 million. Sarah started crying. Emily just stared. "I'm challenging this," David announced. "I'll prove she coerced him. I'll prove Dad wanted me to have the company." "Good luck with that," Jackson said. Margaret was under no legal obligation to sign anything. Her refusal isn't coercion. It's consent being withheld. David stood up. "This isn't over." Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single comment. Thank you. David filed papers within a week. Anderson v. Anderson. He was suing me, his own mother, for interference with inheritance rights and manipulation of a dying man. The lawsuit demanded the court overturn the 2015 will and enforce Robert's clear intentions to leave him the company. The local papers picked it up. Family fortune fight, Anderson son sues mother. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Friends from the country club, distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted the gossip. Jennifer posted on Instagram, "Standing by my husband during this difficult time. Sometimes you have to fight for what's right. Justice for David or family betrayal." The comments were vicious. Half supported David. The other half called him a greedy snake. Our family's dirty laundry was everywhere. Sarah wanted to withdraw from everything. "I don't want the money if it means this," she said. Emily agreed. They were ready to hand it all to David just to end the nightmare. "No," I told them. "This is exactly what he wants, to make you feel guilty until you give up what you deserve. We're not backing down." Jackson filed our response, denied every claim. Then he added something David hadn't expected: counter evidence of financial misconduct. Discovery phase hit David like a train. Jackson subpoenaed 3 years of company records, David's personal bank statements, credit card bills, everything. David tried to fight it, but the judge allowed it. If he was claiming he deserved the company, we could examine how he'd been running it. The results were devastating. $200,000 to that fake crypto investment. Except we had proof now. He'd never invested it. It went to offshore accounts, luxury purchases, a Miami condo registered under an LLC, $60,000 in Vegas gambling debts, $40,000 to a woman named Tessa, including rent for her apartment. He'd also been stealing from the company directly, small amounts at first, $5,000 here, $10,000 there. But it added up over 3 years. David had embezzled almost $400,000 from his father's company. Jackson compiled it all into a 50-page brief with bank records, receipts, photos. He filed it with the court and sent copies to David's lawyer. Lawrence called 3 hours later. "We need to talk about a settlement." "No settlement," I said. "I want every document read in open court. I want everyone to know exactly who David Anderson is." Sarah finally understood why I'd been so cold, so distant. Emily read the reports and cried for days. Not sad tears, angry ones. He'd called her irresponsible while stealing from their dying father. The trial lasted 4 days. Sarah testified first. She explained every time David had failed them. The loan she'd asked for during her divorce. His response. How he'd called her financially irresponsible while she worked 2 jobs. "He told me I didn't deserve help," Sarah said from the witness stand, "that I'd made my choices. Then I found out he'd been stealing from the company the entire time, spending Dad's money on gambling and mistresses." David's lawyer tried to discredit her. "Isn't it true you're biased because you stand to inherit millions? I'm biased because he's my brother, and he abandoned me when I had nothing," Sarah replied. "The money doesn't change that he told me I deserved to lose my home." Emily testified next, about the cancer, about David's reaction to her diagnosis, about how he'd said she deserved it for not getting a real job. "I was 25 years old with cancer," Emily said, "and my brother told me it was my fault, that it was a wake-up call." Her voice cracked. "I would have died for him once. He couldn't spare $50,000 to save my life." The courtroom was silent. Several jurors were crying. David stared at the table, face red. Then Jackson played the recording. Emily had recorded their phone conversation. We heard David's voice, cold and dismissive. "Actions have consequences. Maybe this will teach you responsibility." His lawyer called for a recess. Jennifer filed for divorce on day 3 of the trial. The process server handed David the papers outside the courthouse, cameras rolling. She'd moved out that morning, taken the kids, hired the most aggressive divorce attorney in Connecticut. Her Instagram post went up that night. "Sometimes you learn the truth about who you married. Grateful to be free. Ian new beginnings, Ian single mom, Ian blessed." She deleted every photo of David, all the posts about the Anderson legacy, the family empire, the perfect marriage. Gone. David called me that night. "Are you happy now?" His voice sounded broken. "My wife left. She's taking my kids, trying to get full custody. I didn't make her leave," I said calmly. "Your choices did. You destroyed me." "No, David. You destroyed yourself. I just showed everyone who you really were." He hung up. The next day, Jennifer's lawyer filed documents claiming David was an unfit father. Attached were bank statements showing the gambling, the affair, the financial instability. She wanted sole custody with supervised visitation only. David's perfect life was collapsing in real time, and he'd built every bit of the foundation himself. Now, you understand what happened that night. The anniversary party wasn't really about celebrating 25 years of marriage. Robert had been dead for 8 months. I'd planned this party as something else entirely. A public reckoning. 200 people. Friends, family, business associates, country club members. Everyone who'd watched David be golden his whole life. Everyone who'd ignored Sarah and Emily. Everyone who'd assumed the Anderson money belonged to the Anderson men. I'd waited until after the trial. After the verdict, after all the evidence was public record, I wanted no doubts about what I was going to say. David came because he still thought he could salvage something, play the victim, win sympathy, rebuild his reputation. Sarah and Emily came because I'd asked them to trust me one more time. I stood up with my champagne glass. Silence fell. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I have an announcement." David smiled, uncertain but hopeful. "Maybe she's forgiven me," his face said. "Maybe this ends here." "I'm redistributing the family estate," I continued. "Sarah and Emily will each receive equal shares of everything. The company, the house, all of it. David will receive nothing." The room erupted. Gasps, shouts. Someone dropped their glass. David's face went from hopeful to shocked to enraged in 3 seconds. "Mom," he started. "You were given every advantage," I said, voice carrying over the chaos. "And you used it to steal, to lie, to abandon your sisters when they needed you. You gambled away your father's money. You had an affair. You told Emily she deserved cancer. People were pulling out phones, recording." David backed toward the door. "This family's wealth was built on my father's money, my mother's inheritance. It's mine to distribute. And I choose my daughters, the ones who showed up, the ones who cared, the ones who didn't need to be perfect because they were already enough." Sarah was crying. Emily grabbed her hand. David stood at the door, face white, then turned and walked out. The party continued. Some people left, uncomfortable. Most stayed. They wanted to see what would happen next. The video went viral. 10 million views. Half called me a hero, half called me cruel. David lost everything. Friends stopped calling. Country club revoked membership. Law firm forced him to resign. Jennifer got full custody. He sent letters. "I'm sorry. I've learned my lesson." But always ended with, "I should still get something." Still bargaining. I never responded. Sarah started therapy. Emily's cancer went into remission. They moved back to Connecticut. We had dinner every Sunday. Real dinners, where everyone talked. The court's official ruling came down in January. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation, presided. She spent 20 minutes reading her decision. The key part: the evidence shows Mr. David Anderson engaged in systematic financial misconduct, theft, and emotional abuse of his family members. The plaintiff's claim that he was promised the estate is irrelevant. Mrs. Margaret Anderson was under no obligation to sign the 2023 will. Furthermore, the court finds that 70% of the estate in question legally belongs to Mrs. Anderson through inheritance and investment. She has full discretion over its distribution. David lost. Completely. No appeal would succeed. The evidence was too clear. Additionally, the judge continued, the court orders Mr. Anderson to repay $437,000 in stolen funds to the company estate, with interest. Failure to comply will result in criminal charges for embezzlement. David didn't have that kind of money. Not anymore. His assets were frozen, his accounts empty, his reputation destroyed. He'd have to declare bankruptcy or face prison. Sarah and Emily sat beside me as the verdict was read. When it was over, We walked out of that courthouse together. Photographers everywhere, questions shouted, cameras flashing. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just got in my car and drove home. Justice doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels necessary. Christmas Eve. David sent a 5-page letter. Apologies, promises. Then page 4. I deserve something. 10%. Just to show you still love me. I wrote back one sentence. You deserve exactly what you gave your sisters when they needed you. Nothing. New Year's Day, he showed up at the house. Sarah and Emily stood behind me. United front. I've lost everything, he said. I'm your son. You were my son when Sarah needed help, when Emily had cancer. Being my son didn't make you show up then. We closed the door. Last time we saw him, people ask if I regret the public humiliation. But David built his life on public perception. The golden son, the perfect heir. He used that image as a weapon for 30 years. I just showed everyone the truth. On my father's grave, a man who builds, honestly, builds forever. David thought he was entitled because of his name. Sarah and Emily earned it by showing up when it mattered. That's the real legacy. Not money or companies. Just love. The kind that remembers who was there when it counted. My daughters were there. David wasn't.